Now, here's the one thing I will say, as if you want to have one little asterisk or caveat, De'Aaron Fox probably helps out with a lot of the issues we have tonight. Even if we have the same issues, just 25 right there. I know that
Yeah.
simplifies it. I know that oversimplifies things. Those guys still have to improve in these areas that we're talking about. But adding De'Aaron Fox to the team we saw tonight, at the least, makes this a close loss.
For sure. I think the biggest thing that we were missing tonight was actually Trey Jones' pace of play off the
Right.
bench. What does De'Aaron Fox do better than literally anybody else in the NBA? Push the pace. He is Fox. He is the fastest point guard in the league, I think. So add that with his 25 points per game and his 7 assists that he's likely going to get us. And I think he's the second best point guard in pick and roll play to who? Chris Paul in terms of like points per pick and
Mm-hmm.
roll. I think is that official stat, which is something weird that they track now. But he is the second best at that. So bringing him in as a pick and roll partner with Victor Wembanyama. You have floor spacing with Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes. You have a defensive madman who's been playing really, really well, and Stephon Castle, and shot 2 of 5 tonight from 3. I don't envision that being consistent moving forward, but I think he fits like a glove, and he will allow us to play a lot faster. And he's a former clutch player of the year. So these fourth quarter
Mm-hmm.
execution issues, Jude, that we've been noticing, where it's like, okay, who's taking the shot? If it's not Victor, and we have inconsistency amongst other players, we don't have to worry about that anymore. If it's not Victor taking the shot, it's going to be Swipa, De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, man. I mean, this guy earlier this year, Ethan, I forget, this guy scored 60 points. And
Yeah,
then in the game after that, I'm pretty sure it was either like 51 or something like that. It was like 109 points in 2 games or 2 days. I think it was a back-to-back. Y'all can correct me on that in the comments. I know that for a fact he had the 60-point game. So
hmm
that's the type of person that we're bringing in. And I think that, again, like you said, in late game execution, or like a lot of the runs that we saw tonight, they're probably stalled in the first place because we have another all-star level scorer.
yeah. My only question would be, um, can he maintain that volume of shots next to Victor? I think it's a yes. But if it is a yes, this correct me if I'm wrong, Drew. This will be the first time Victor's played with somebody that can average 20 plus points per game. Because
Yeah. You want to hear my first honest gut reaction to that?
what?
I was like, "Oh, you just played with Keldon Johnson."
Yeah, but like simultaneously,
No, I'm sorry. Obviously, that doesn't count.
at the same time as Victor.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know this off the top of my head, but I'm curious how many other All Stars play with somebody on their
Right.
team that also averages 20 points per game. You got to think it's most of them,
Right. Yeah.
right? AD and Luca,
Tyrese and Embiid.
Tyrese and Embiid, Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown didn't make the All Star game. No, he did. He did make the All Star game. But I think you get my point. For
Kawhi,
every
James Harden.
Batman,
Right.
there's a Robin who was equally as deserving of an All Star game. I think we can safely say, other than Victor Wembanyama, there's nobody else on our team that even came close to sniffing the All Star game. Now we have that guy, and all reports point to that he wants to be in San Antonio long term, and we're going to have to pay him, and that's just the nature of the NBA. We'll give him a contract extension. But on paper, everything should fit, Jude.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm really excited for that, and I know you were kind of just jumping into that a little bit, and obviously kind of we ended the episode with that, kind of wrapping that up there. Saying how obviously bringing him in is going to solve a lot of the issues that we discussed, but just to dish it to you for your reaction, man. I know obviously you had something going on last night. I don't know if I was the person who let you know, but
Mm.
kind of a twofold question here. What was your reaction with everything that happened last night? Because we didn't get that. And then two, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but how do you think he fits on the court? With that starting lineup we talked about, and just our personnel. So your reaction, and then also how you think he fits with the Spurs.
Well, last night, not to get too personal for everybody that's listening, I was having a terrible time helping my sister move into an apartment. And if you've ever helped anyone move, you know how
Oh,
miserable it is to just assemble furniture and stuff. But as I was on the floor, on my hands and knees, cussing at myself, trying to screw in this piece of shit, uh, fake wood entertainment center at 9 o'clock at night, I could hear my phone buzzing, and I literally, like, stood up and was like, "I bet the Spurs made a trade," but I didn't know for sure, and, like, an hour later, as I crawled into my car, I looked at my phone, Jude, and it was like I was Shams. I had a billion texts. Like, because people just think I'm into some kinda insider because I talk to you about the Spurs on the internet,
Right.
which I'm not an insider, but my immediate reaction was kind of, muffled because, like, I was just, like, so exhausted, but I was like, "Oh, great. Great." And, like, I told my sister and I told my girlfriend, and they were like, "Who? Who?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not with people that I can talk to about this." But on the way home, I called a few folks, and that kinda got my excitement back up, Jude, and I was like, "Okay, we got our guy. We have our guy. This is a great move." We didn't trade anybody really other than Trey Jones and Zach Collins, and CD Sissoko, great guy, but he's still really raw and a
Mhm.
young second-round talent. Like, we got to keep Keldon. We got to keep Devin. We got to keep Stephon, and we got to keep Atlanta's first round picks. And to me, it felt like a fleece. I listened to your thing, and I think that that's what really rings true in my head. Is it feels like we stole this, and based on my analysis of Twitter and YouTube commentary, it feels like most of the world thinks that the Spurs won this, and the question is, why would the Bulls help us do this? But shout out Chicago. I don't know who their GM is, but God bless that man or woman, um, because Zach Levine is really the only reason the Sacramento Kings said yes to this deal. So you gotta bless them, with everything in your and, like, we gotta give them a win or something. I hope Matas Buzelis is the next big thing because they're the reason that this deal got done. Um, and in terms of fit with the team, like I said, I think he's an incredible floor general. Uh, pace of play is incredible. He's obviously a very clutch player. Sure, he shoots sub 35% from three, but if you've played against him, you know that in key moments he's going to knock those down. And he's only progressed in that regard, and he's still able to get 25 points a game, Jude, shooting less than
Yeah.
35% from three. So I'm not worried about that. He's not going to be relegated to a corner. This is a guy we're going to give the ball to and let him play high pick and roll with Victor Wembanyama. Like, he's going to be taking mid-range jump shots. He's going to be taking floaters, layups at the rim. He's a very physical finisher despite being, small frame. So I think he fits like a glove. He's a long-term point guard. He can play off of Stephon Castle. He's played next to other point guards in Sacramento. They've run rotations where they have two small guards in their lineup, and they were in the playoff picture the last couple of years. I think it fits. And I saw some comments about his defense. I actually think he's a solid defender. He's not going to like lock someone up like a Stephon Castle, but I think he plays smart defense. He gets his hands in passing lanes. I'm pretty sure he's always high in the steals count, and I know that's not a
Yeah.
representation of how great of a defender you are.
He's averaging 1.5 steals this season.
Yeah, that's like I would quantify that as like a Chris Paul style defender. Would we say Chris Paul sits in the
Eh,
chair and locks anyone up? Not really, but he's top three in assists or
I'd
steals
say
all time.
De'Aaron's better than
He's
Chris
more
Paul
physical for
defensively.
sure.
Even like Chris Paul, prime Chris Paul, I think that this version of De'Aaron is even better than him. I mean, that's kind of why they call him Swipe of the Fox. Like, I know it's because he's fast, but it's also because of his steals.
Mm,
And that kind of came up
exactly.
during his time at Kentucky. Anyways,
So you're good. Final thoughts. I think that the trade itself is an A plus, and then fit with the team. I'm gonna give it an A minus, and the only reason it's not a plus is because I still think we're one great player away from being like championship level, obviously.
mhm,
And I
mhm.
don't know if that's going to be Stephon Castle. I don't know if that's going to be a guy we draft this year or a guy that we sign or trade for in the future. But that's the only reason it's not an A plus is because the pairing of just him and just Victor Wembanyama, I don't think is enough to get us to the promised land yet.
What are your thoughts on our playoff outlook? Because that was another thing I discussed last night.
I did hear that, Jude. I think if we don't make the play in, it's a failure. Honestly, I think we need to be pushing for that 8 or 7 seed. The only reason I'm not saying guaranteed top 6 is because the West is so competitive even still,
Mhm.
and those teams in the top 6, other than Dallas and LA, really haven't changed all that much, and even though they changed, they're still both very good, so I don't think they're gonna drop out of that picture, but I think we absolutely need to go on a run, This will be interesting because he's coming into the team on the rodeo road trip, so he's not going to be in
Yes.
San Antonio until mid March or early March, excuse me. So this will be a real test of our of our team camaraderie and ability to stay
Mhm.
connected on the road. Because we're gonna need to win a lot of these games in order to get into that play-in picture, but that has to be our goal 100%, and I think that we definitely are within that capability.
And, if our goal is to get to the play-in and try to win games, a road trip like that, like those set of circumstances, it's a tough set of circumstances, but if we're gonna do that, it's kind of the perfect set of circumstances to propel us forward after that as much as it's a challenge.
For sure. And M Easy, I see your steals doesn't make a good defender. Just rewind the video. I believe I said that. Um, but thank you for being here, for commenting as well.
Yeah, I guess what I would say there, I think you can for sure maybe criticize some physicality things or some like on ball defense stuff with
He's not going
De'Aaron,
to make a
but
defensive first or second team, but I don't think he's a bad defender.
I was gonna say I still think he's a pretty solid on ball defender on top of being good at steals as well. But I think that's really besides the point when it comes to this here. I still think I think if we've been able to manage the improvement that we've been able to have with a 40-year-old Chris Paul out there still
Hmm.
making some plays defensively, I think De'Aaron Fox is gonna be just fine, if not an upgrade. And on top of that, again, the scoring ability and the clutch ability on top of again just having another the attention that he is going to draw, having another true all-star player as well as a point guard that you can pair with Victor in the pick and roll. That is what matters
Hmm.
whenever it comes to De'Aaron Fox coming to San Antonio, at least for me when I think about it.
Just think about how great De'Aaron and Sabonis were together in the pick and roll and as a tag team duo. Uh,
Yeah.
and Sabonis can't even shoot.
Hmm.
Now he's got somebody that can do almost everything Sabonis can. Sabonis, I think, is obviously more physical. He's going to get more rebounds than Wemby, but he can do all that, and he can shoot. He can create his own shot off the dribble. This is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. And if we're playing, here's another thing about the defensive conversation. If we're playing him next to Steph, if you really are concerned about him in a one-on-one matchup, then just throw Steph on that guard.
That's literally what I was going to say. We still have Stephon Castle
And Jeremy Sohan for that matter when we're talking defense.
and Jeremy Sohan. Uh, I think this puts us in a much better place than we were last week. Let's
Yeah,
put it that way.
absolutely.